So there's an article that came out at the end of last week. It's titled How to Arrange Your Post-Pandemic Friendscape by an author named Kate Murphy. So early in the article, Murphy says, as pandemic restrictions ease in the United States and we may once again belly up to an all-you-can-eat buffet of social activity, the question is, will we pile our plates and gorge or be more selective and stick to what nourishes and sustains us? Psychologists, sociologists, and evolutionary anthropologists say it behooves us to take a more curatorial approach when it comes to our friends because who you hang out with determines who you are. So out of curiosity, how does that strike you all? Anything problematic there? Or do we agree that, it's worth being curatorial about our friendships and who we hang out with?
I think I'm in buffet mode. I don't know. Well, not quite yet. Really, I've only hung out with like 2 or 3 vaccinated friends, but it's time. I'm going to go get coffees with people, meet people for drinks. I used to maybe do that once a week. I'm doing every single night. Not yet.
Oh my God.
I mean,
wow.
Aspirationally, I'm not actually doing that. I probably don't have the mental energy to do that. But I don't know. I'm not curatorial, is what I'm saying.
Survey, are you thinking about this at all as you reapproach the world? Are you thinking of like your social connections and friendships in curation mode, or is it just like a give me all of the social activity, please, Lord?
So I don't have very many friends. So I already curate, I guess, just because I don't like a lot of people. So I mean, it's not like I have like fringe friends that I wouldn't hang out with. I just don't hang out. I literally only have like 5 friends. Not even. Yeah, I just don't. It's hard for me to open up to people. I'm very private.
Who wants to open up to people? It sucks. So that's one part of the article. Now, another aspect of it says this. It says, having friends who encourage, stimulate, and support you is associated with improved immunity, good, lower blood pressure, and higher cognitive function. Having no friends, toxic friends, or superficial friends not only can make you feel insecure, lonely, or depressed, but can also accelerate cellular aging and increase your risk of premature death. And then final thing that I found kind of interesting, it says that research shows that only half our friendships are mutual. That is, only half of those who we think are our friends feel the same way about us, which I found horrifying because as someone who's insecure about friendships, sometimes I do think that, like, do I think someone's my friend and they're just like Michael who? But here's the real kicker. When this article first came out, there was a chunk in the section about who we should be friends with that said we should avoid being friends with people who suffer from obesity, depression, who use tobacco or alcohol, who are unhealthy, and was basically like, since we're affected by the friends that we have, only have friends that are totally good, because if you have a depressed friend, you'll be depressed. If you have an overweight friend, you'll get overweight. If your friends drink or smoke, it's going to be bad for you. And I'm just going to read you a couple comments on the New York Times website.
Wait, can I just, okay, so obesity, drinking, smoking, depression, that's like 100% of Americans are one of those that you'll have.
I don't know. When it was going through the list, I was like, I do not have a friend. I don't have any friend that's like super jacked physically, no mental health issues, doesn't use any substances of any sort, just drinks kale smoothies. Like, I don't know this person.
How the fuck did this get published? Like, does this not go through like any sort of like fact checking, or did the copy editor not look at this and be like, yikes? Like,
yeah.
Something
lay it on us, Burns.
I'm going to look at a couple comments and then I'll read you the retraction. I just like these. So if you look, there are a lot of comments on this article. Here's one from BK Billy from Brooklyn, New York. They said, I don't know who this person is. Why stop here? I'm pretty sure I've read literature somewhere that says people who have friends with cancer are more likely to wind up with cancer. Same with AIDS. Those people are surely holding you back too, Miss Murphy. Curate them. And it says, New York Times, what exactly were you thinking printing an article that calls depression, obesity, smoking, and drinking the opposite of kind, studious, and enterprising? Oh, yeah, because it did say that. Do you still have editors? Then Liz, down in Austin, Texas, says, what a tone-deaf, elitist take on the human condition. I can't imagine the level of privilege and lack of insight that would lead someone to suggest cutting out fat and disabled people, as well as those suffering from mental illness. God forbid this author had to deal with all 3. What a bummer for them. So that's Liz and BK Billy.
Kim from Austin.
Close enough. Liz, 3-letter name.
Liz.
You got it. But so then the New York Times retracted that section and added this. This article has been updated to remove references to studies that examined issues related to friendships and obesity, depression, and tobacco and alcohol use. The article's references to the studies lacked sufficient context and attribution and did not adequately convey their relevance to the issues discussed in the article. But how did that get published?
I haven't looked at the research, whatever. Maybe there's like dozens of published peer-reviewed things that's like, yeah, we're in on this. But I know with health journalism in general, it's like one study of 20 people found the like slightest statistical significance for this claim. And I like the New York Times is basically going on like the studies may not have been super robust or accurate, but was any of it? And also like what level of checking are you doing on there? And also, even if it was true, it's just so shitty, but I can talk about that later. I don't want to.
I mean, it all reminds me too of, and we might have mentioned this on this podcast before, if we haven't, like, you know, do the Googles, but of a lot of this like PMC, professional managerial class discourse about how people are starting to treat every part of their life using like management theory and the way we think about work and employability. And it just like remind me of that. Like, it's sort of like I'm going through my friendship resumes, looking at who has positive qualities and could contribute to my overall brand and bottom line. Like, it's sort of, there's something about, the article doesn't mention the word like love. And I think friendship has a lot to do with love and emotional bonds and building others up. And there's even, you know, there's stuff in Plato and Aristotle about the importance of friendship, and friendship being this process by which people relate to each other for positive benefit and good. And none of like the cool old Greek philosophers were like only be friends with the fanciest men and the nicest togas. There was a lot of talk about friendship being this process of like reciprocal growth via loving bonds. And, you know, the reduction of things to like scientific terms, and I think those studies, I think provides like a faux objectivity where someone could say like, well, if it helps your cellular aging, then you're allowed to like abandon a friend who's going through some really serious stuff and not be there for them.
I'm very curious about this writer's life. Like, does she not drink, or has she not been depressed? How was her BMI?
I can't imagine. And if Kate Murphy's a real Irish American, she is depressed, she is drinking, she is using one to cope for the other. Yeah. You know, I'm sorry if Kate Murphy's, actually, I'm not sorry, Kate Murphy. You wrote a thing that was kind of reckless. If you want to come on the podcast, feel free. Yeah.
The studies being bullshit is one thing, but I think in its most severe form, I think maybe it gets at the problems with, like, I don't want to say all curatorial friendships, but like that ethos is kind of what you were saying, Burns, with the PMC culture. It's kind of celebrating, endorsing, promoting kind of the like commodification or neoliberalization of like friendship, right? You know, there's a lot to say about friendship and community, and you know, sometimes your friends are dragging you down, but like, you know, there's ethics of care rather than like ethics of, you know, like gain, right? Like your friend is not always going to be helping you out, etc. It could be about mutual growth, but like sometimes your friends is in a shitty place and they need that. Sometimes with your friends with a person with like real shitty opinions, and like, do you cut them out of your life, or do you try to like help them through that? And I think, you know, we're stuck in this mentality where it's a commodity which has to do like a service for me. And the same thing with love and dating and relationships.
Yeah. I mean, and I think with friendships too, like having friends who maybe don't have the same issues as us or have had positive growth can be really beneficial. Like, I know, like, I have a friend, I'll say his name's Dan Olson. Look him up. Good writer, has a website with some stuff on it. But he's the sort of person who, like, if I can think in a scenario, like, what would Dan do? And it's normally something good and healthy. And he's someone who's a good dad and a good partner and stuff like that. And it would be horrible if back in the day when I first became friends with Dan, he was like, oh, Michael's kind of a mess, not worth my time. But because he's a good person, he would never think like that. And I think that's what like good friendships and good relationships often involve, like that balance between high and low, where we're there for people and they're there for us. You know, I would say that one of the few things in the article that I did just like was a line that said, where she stepped back and said, but in all of this, of course, it's not just evaluating others. We can even think about, like, are we being good friends? Are we acting the way that we want to? And I think that's like a cool thing to think about. I think maybe some of us, I don't know if y'all have had this scenario, but in a couple of my first hangouts post-vaccine, I've been with people who at various points have talked too much. and maybe talk too much about themselves, and then came to that realization, and in the same setting was like, sorry guys, I've been talking a lot. I haven't talked to anyone but my partner and my dog in a year. But yeah, I think we can all actively think about, are we being good friends? But yeah, if you cut someone out of your life because of these reasons, I think you're just objectively an asshole.
Yeah.
I think diversity of thought is important, which is what you touched on earlier. And like the other thing is I have a friend who is very kind, and like 80% of the time she and I get along so well. But there's 20% of the time where she'll just, our personalities are not aligned perfectly. But it's not like I'm like, your depression is really ramping up right now, so I'm just got to cut you out because that 20% is really bringing me down. I feel like there's 20% of the time when I'm not doing well, but she takes the time to listen to me. Or it's those experiences that make her empathetic. She's dealt with certain things. Her life has been so different from mine, and that's what makes her such an empathetic, kind friend. And the idea of cutting her out because she has depression or anxiety or whatever, I just can't imagine. It just seems so strange. I do think that it's good to cut out people who are incredibly toxic and make you feel bad about yourself. But if they're a little obese or they smoke cigarettes, like, that's just strange. I find it very, very strange. And now I want to go on like a deep dive into this writer's life and be like, tell me about everything. You should explain yourself.
For you, Murphy. We're coming for you. Yeah, I do think with the smoking thing, though, I don't want to be friends with anyone who smokes inside in 2021. Sorry. I have no problem if you go outside and smoke. If you're an indoor smoker, I want nothing to do with you. It's disgusting. But I agree with everything you're saying there, Survey. I think, like, I have 2 really close male friends. We're a tight little unit. And I think in the past couple of years, we've been more open with each other about, like, mental health stuff and feelings. And our friendships have, like, grown a lot. I think we've grown a lot in being that, like, oh, it's okay. We can admit this stuff rather than hiding it because, men are often taught to like bury it down. And I think since we've been more open, it's actually made our friendship stronger. So Kate Murphy doesn't know what she's talking about. I'd love to talk to her friends. Imagine reading that article if you're like Kate Murphy's friend and you like put on a little pandemic weight, or like, you like to have a beer every now and then and you're just like, oh shit, I haven't heard from her in a while.